maybe let's say I didn't come back. The Lord was going to work on you regardless.
Regardless.
The Lord was going to work through you with your mom,
Yeah.
no matter what.
Right.
Then your mom was going to start work. I'm sorry. The Lord was going to work through you with your kids, with your brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And so during your stand, if I didn't come back, you were still going to heal your relationship with your mom,
Mm-hmm.
your relationship with the kids, your relationship with your siblings, aunts, uncles.
Mm-hmm.
Through you, you were still going to be that generational curse breaker
Mm-hmm.
because you could still affect those around you, those you love, your family.
Right.
Um, but thank the Lord that He allowed me to get to the end of myself to come back. And now I can start working on my kids, my siblings, my parents,
Yeah.
aunts, uncles. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's really something that for standers you need to hear, that during your stand, that's where the Lord was telling you, take your eyes off of me and put it on
Right.
Him. When your focus is on the Lord, it doesn't become about you anymore. It's and it's not to ease the heartache or to make light of it, but now the Lord is going to start directing you to start healing other relationship wounds with
Mm-hmm.
your parents or
Yeah.
siblings,
Right.
children. Your children are going to be the ones that are affected by it, so they need to see you as the example. So that's something that at least you can find, if you want to say silver lining or encouragement,
Yeah.
that the Lord is still going to work through you, even in this time. And sometimes maybe you were at some point focusing on me too much, and the
Yeah.
Lord couldn't use you effectively
Right.
and work through you.
Right. Well, I do.
Thank you for joining us on Before the Vows. My name is Robert. This is my lovely wife, Monica.
Hi.
And today we are going to, you could say it's a part two of our childhood. Um, Monica works a little differently, so I'm going to be asking her questions. That way she can kind of go from there. And the reason we're doing this is that you all, the viewers, can get a better understanding. Maybe you can relate or had similar childhoods. Um, and it can also help us see where we're at and why we act the way we do as teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
adults, and what we've done in our marriage,
Yeah.
and how we know how to push our spouse's buttons. So, um, go ahead.
Well, sometimes not even knowing,
Right.
right, that we're pushing their buttons
Yeah.
because we're in protective mode trying to defend ourselves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what we've known. We've talked about how it's kind of, we've been programmed,
Yeah.
and it's just a programming, just like you would have to do with a computer. You'd have to reprogram it to do certain things. And once you've taught it or instructed it or put in the
Right.
programming to do this, this, and this, if you want it to do something different, you're gonna have to either put in a whole new program
Mm-hmm.
or go back in there and manually start changing things up, codes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So let's start from the very beginning. When you were little, you were, um, as a child, I guess. What's the earliest you could remember?
The earliest I remember, I want to say it was like maybe about 3 years old. There's a few um, things that I remember from that.
Okay, so let's start with, what was your relationship with your parents? Let's.
Well, so my mom and dad were married when they had me. My mom was a lot younger than my dad. I believe there was an 8 year difference. Um, and um, but my mom left my dad when I was about 6 to 9 months, and so left states because we lived in a different state, and so then, and that was the end of my dad. I didn't really have communication or anything with my dad. One time when I was little, one time over the phone, and I even remember that conversation. My stepmom made a comment to my dad, and my dad wound up hanging up the phone with me. And then when I was like in third grade, I flew to where he lived by myself, but it was the most awkward thing because I didn't have a relationship with him. So that's what it was with my dad. With my mom, I don't remember. I don't remember a lot of emotional things, or I can't even say a relationship. I don't remember that with my mom when I'm little. Now, not to say that there wasn't one. I just can't remember.
So, how was your relationship with your siblings?
um, with my siblings, I wasn't, I mean, I'm not going to say I was close to them, but I was closer to them because I had to babysit them. I was the oldest. It was me and my two brothers. And so I had to take care of them. And I remember always saying, like, I didn't get to be in sports because I had to take care of them. And I remember I wanted to be in things, but my mom was at times single and at times wasn't single.
Yeah. So, why were you having to take care of your?
Because the times where she was single and was at work. And so I was having to take care of them, or when she was single and doing the single life, I was taking care of them.
So, you didn't have a relationship with your father.
Hmm.
I would imagine that your mom had some friends when
Yeah,
she was single.
right.
Was there any long term um, relationships that your mom went through that you had a relationship with any of those
Yeah,
gentlemen?
so with my brothers, their dad, um he was around when I was about a year and a half, and then and then so one brother is 3 years younger than me, the other one's 6 years younger than me, and they're both from him. But they there was a little bit of off and on with my mom and that one also, until I was probably about in third, fourth grade. They wound up getting married. Um, and I don't remember how long that lasted, but it was probably a couple years. And then he moved out, but I still remained a part of his nieces and nephews and brothers. They were my uncles and cousins, and so yeah,
So
that's
he was your first constant father figure in
yes,
the home.
yeah. But he also was very quiet, so he didn't really do much with me. He didn't do much with my brothers either. Like, even my brothers to this day will say they never heard "I love you" from him, and I always laugh because I said I heard "I love you" from him one time, but he was drunk. He was drunk, and he came to me crying, and I was little, and he said, "I want you to know that I love you." And I always remember that. But my brothers say to this day they never heard him say that. So he was a very quiet man. I knew that he cared about me, but he never pursued me. Like, he never pursued a relation, like you would want for a father
Mm-hmm.
to, to interact with you or
Right.
whatever.
So then you don't have your dad in the picture.
Yeah.
Your first experience with the father figure isn't doesn't communicate very well with
Mhm.
emotions.
Mhm.
And so when in how old were you when you had I would say your first real experience with a father figure? Maybe he's not being a father, but at least he's a mainstay. He's a male presence in the home. At about what age were you
With him or my second one?
when the first main, the first father? Again, not a father figure for you, but just someone who was at home, who was a male presence
um
outside of him.
okay.
Who was the next one? At what
Yeah, the
age?
next one was my mom's next husband.
Hmm.
So he came around when I think I was in the sixth grade, but
Hmm.
that was really bad too. Like, I was already I was rebellious. Like, I wasn't bad, but I was already, don't tell me what to do. I just kind of had, I always say I was respectful, but I wasn't used to somebody coming in and trying to tell me what to do. And so for a lot of years, because if he came around about sixth grade, I didn't respect him a lot or listen to him until I was about 20 years old,
Hmm.
and then that's when our relationship completely changed.
So you can say all your first 20 years of life,
Hmm.
you didn't have a relationship with any male
Yeah,
figure, as far as a father figure.
right.
And when you did, you by the time you finally had the opportunity, you were really already checked out from something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I always feel like the only way I can explain it sometimes is I feel like I just floated around by myself a little bit. Like, even though I had my brothers who I had to take care of, I still had my mom there, but my mom was doing her thing or working. And there's even times where she says she worked 3 jobs. So she was, not really present. So I kind of just felt like I was floating around.
Okay. So then that's the extent, or it seems like the no father figure in
Yeah.
your life when you're
Hmm.
younger. So that's some trauma there. How
Yeah.
was your relationship with your mom? Um, how did you all get along?
Gosh. Well, I really, honestly, the times that do come to my mind are not the good times. I know that when my mom, when she was dating somebody else, I basically had to forget the person before. So with my first stepdad, I had a picture of him in my room, and my mom was dating someone else. I don't even remember who was second stepdad, but I remember, there was a time she wanted me to take it down, and I said no, I didn't want to take it down. And I remember there was I think I was in middle school, and I remember there was a little she got frustrated because I told her no, and pushed me against the wall. And I remember just staring, and I still to this day I always say, like, I remember staring at her saying, you're not going to make me cry. I didn't say it, but that's what I was thinking. So I always kind of held on to that, like, you're not going to break me, you're not going to make me cry.
So you could say probably at that point that's when you realized, or you didn't realize it,
Hmm.
but you could. That's probably the first sign where you're showing signs of, I guess, not wanting to bond with anybody because of your experience with your dad leaving
Yeah.
you, your stepdad
Yeah.
leaving for whatever reason,
Hmm.
whether you're clearly it just didn't work out between your mom and him,
Uh-huh.
or either of them. So there's that fear of abandonment, and so
Yeah.
you're putting up those walls because you don't want to experience that pain anymore.
Hmm.
Did that play a role in your relationships when you were in middle school and high school?
um yeah, but I don't think I knew it. Like, I just had the mentality of, um I wasn't going to allow anybody to break me. Like, it's just something that you don't realize that's what
Right,
you're
right.
thinking. And so, but what I know that I always was with somebody.
Hmm.
And that's something I definitely see was a pattern from what I grew up and was around, is that there was always somebody,
Hmm.
but I was not going to allow them to break me. I was not going to allow them to hurt me. So if I felt any kind of like anything, I pretty much would end it first. Of course, these are little kid
What do you mean
relationships.
if you feel anything? If you feel that the relationship is coming to an end, or
No, I guess when I felt like they weren't about me any, like, if they weren't about me,
so
I
you wanted all the
yeah.
attention, and if you felt that
Yeah.
you weren't getting it all, that's
Hmm.
when you would cut it off.
Yeah. And even, even if I was getting all the attention, if somebody else gave me just more attention than what the one that I was with, I just jumped into the other one. I didn't even like end the one before. I just moved into the next one. And because this one just gave me more attention, this one complimented me when I wanted to be complimented, or it was just a new one,
Hmm.
right? So that is definitely like how I functioned in the years before you.
So you get all the way because you were 19 when
Mhm.
we met.
Mhm.
So all the way up until you're 19 years old,
Yeah.
you're acting the same way.
Yeah.
Did something change, and what was it?
You?
Okay, so at 19 years
Yeah.
old, and again, we know now,
Yeah.
so that's why I'm asking. You don't have to answer. You didn't know then, but we
Okay.
know now. So what what was it about me that caused you to change?
I don't know. And I always tell you, like, I think what it was is that you, because you did ask me for my number that night, but I think you didn't completely, it was so different because you didn't keep pursuing me that night. You weren't trying to be all around me that night. And I think it was the very end of the night when you asked me for my
Hmm.
number. And I remember, um, the next day when you called me, because I didn't really think much about it that night, but I think even the
Right.
next day when you called me, um, it was just something just shifted. It was just so different. And now we can see that it was the Lord. But I think that's where it was. And I think we
Mhm.
talked about it the other day is that I was so used to being pursued or it just being about me. And then here's this person who's like, well, he called me the next day, but the pursuing was so different. It was just very different.
So you went from being the one being pursued
Hmm.
to not really pursuing.
Yeah,
It was more of a curiosity,
probably.
we
Yeah.
could say.
Hmm.
Like, why isn't he
Right.
acting the way all the others are?
Right.
And so I wonder if that some of your past trauma was kicking in there, like, well, you haven't even experienced anything with this guy, and
Hmm.
you're already gonna, or maybe it was just a curiosity.
Maybe.
I guess it was
Hmm.
just a curiosity.
Yeah.
You wanted to find out more, so you were intrigued. Why? What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It just
so,
seemed like work already from the beginning. Like I feel like I didn't really have to do work before, but I don't. I can't even explain it. I don't know how. The day that we talked, I don't even remember what that conversation. Like, did we say we'll call each other later? Did you say? I don't even remember how it was. But yeah,
yeah,
I guess it was the curiosity. It was just completely different than what it had been before.
right.
Hmm.
And so, based on all your past trauma and the things that you had experienced, what what were some of those things that you carried into our relationship?
Um, I think I never really thought before like that I wasn't enough, but I know with you that came out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It came out in me of thinking I wasn't enough. It came out of me that I had to try. I never had to try. I never did before because I was never challenged before. Um, I don't recall if I felt like I had to try with my mom to get her attention. I think when I felt a certain way, I just kept people at a distance. I
Mm-hmm.
always just kept people at a distance. Or if they hurt me, I just kind of walked away. I didn't go into an argument with it or anything, but so I don't know. I think those are some things I probably brought in also was whenever there was something going on with us, I kind of just sometimes I didn't in the early on,
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of like I didn't like what I was feeling from you,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of wanted to just like okay, I'm done. I walk away, and I went back to something that was comfortable for me that
Mm-hmm.
I thought I felt safe in.
No. And so, I guess we're going along in our relationship. You're
Mhm.
feeling, um, of course, by this time, a couple of years in, we already have two kids together.
Yeah,
I'm doing my thing.
yeah,
I want to hang out with my friends. You're wondering, we have two kids together. He doesn't love me because I'm not there all the time, or
yeah,
I'm out with my friends. I'm falling asleep or passing out at other people's houses. You're home alone with the kids.
yeah.
What is going through your mind? What can you say that now that you know, what are you feeling?
I think it was trying to be enough.
Mhm.
I think I was trying like I would try maybe if I did this, he would you know I always say it too. If I was thinner, if I was thicker, if I was this, that, and the other, I'm like, I've been all of them, but nothing ever changed, right? Because I was thinner before and it was the same way. And nothing changed. But I think it was always trying to like, okay, maybe if I'm nicer to him,
Yeah.
maybe if I did my hair a different way, or if it was always trying to like improve me to maybe this is what was gonna win over, I
Which is something
guess.
you never had to do before. You never had to try.
Right. I never had to try and, not to say that it was, I was something,
Right,
but it
right,
was just what I was attracting. Again, it was kid relationships
right,
too.
right.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know they're just relationships when we're younger,
Hmm.
but where a lot of those relationships are, or the way we act in those relationships
Yeah.
are due to how we were treated when we were younger. And so we carry that trauma
Hmm.
into those relationships. And so we hurt those people, or we get hurt by
Yeah.
those people and their trauma.
Right.
And so even though that we're just teenagers, it's still, a lot of it is based off of our childhood.
Mm-hmm.
But then some of those relationships, maybe one or a couple,
Yeah.
those can also be traumatizing, and you
Right.
carry that into your
Mm-hmm.
next
Mm-hmm.
relationship. So yeah, and there's people who develop trauma in their 20s or their 30s
Right.
because they love someone. They're with their high school sweetheart, and something happens, something devastating. I mean, you can say that a little bit. If it wasn't for the Lord, you
Right.
would be experiencing a lot of trauma from what you've experienced with me.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Absolutely. Or if it wasn't, if I didn't lean on the Lord, what would I have done? Because I knew the me before I gave my life to the Lord.
mhm,
And, you know, not calling out family, but there was multiple husbands, there was multiple men,
yeah.
to fill the void. And I was already doing that in high school. So I knew that that's the path I would have gone down.
And to make this clear, a lot of people will, or I used to think this as well, that because I pick up what my dad did, because he picked up what his dad did, and he picked up what his dad did, when it's not something that you see, it's you're picking up the same type of trauma.
Yeah.
And so that trauma is carried down to the next generation, then the next
Hmm.
generation, and then it gets to me, and I'm doing the same thing based on what I'm not getting from my dad or from my
Hmm.
mom, and so forth with you as well.
Hmm.
So you weren't getting that bonding experience with a male figure and a dad, and then I guess you could say you weren't getting the attunement or
Hmm.
the attention or any type of relation, or not much of a relationship with your mom,
Yeah.
and so you would have to find that in relationships.
Right.
And so when you're in those relationships and you feel they're maybe coming to an end, and as you just alluded to, if they weren't giving you as much attention as the new person
Hmm.
was, your nervous system's already kicking in and telling you leave, go to the next one,
Yeah.
so that you don't have to. If you feel that it's wearing out,
Hmm.
and you knew what's going to come, it was going to come to an end,
Yeah.
you jump ship and you
Right.
get on the next one,
Right.
because you're just protecting yourself. You
Yeah.
built this guard up, and you didn't know then,
Right.
but that's how it's played out when you were
Yeah.
younger.
Yeah.
Right?
And and for the record, like I have felt really bad for how I was before in my teenage
Mm.
years, and how I was with certain people. Um, but yeah, I didn't know. But then, what you're talking about with the no father and the mother relationship, I look back at my mom's,
Hmm.
and my mom's was the same way, and then her mom's was the same way. So yeah, it's amazing to see that, and it's amazing that God has gotten a hold of me so that my daughter
Hmm.
does not live that same way.
Right.
She doesn't have the same things because, we
Right.
allowed God to deal with us.
Right. And that's one of the scriptures you have written on your
Hmm.
mirror. I am the generational curse breaker.
Yeah. And and I know it wasn't easy for her. It was very hard for her. And
Hmm.
at times when she'll comment to it sometimes, right? Because
Yeah.
the Lord and her relationship with the Lord is a little bit different. But she doesn't know
Hmm.
what it could have looked like.
Hmm. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it reminded me that not all your kids are going to experience their childhood the same way.
Yeah.
So our son remembers it differently than our daughter does. Our
Yeah.
daughter remembers it as something very traumatic,
Mhm.
whereas our son thinks that he had a pretty decent childhood. Whereas, you know, our youngest would see it a little different.
Yeah.
So each one, even though they lived in the same home, they're all going to experience it
Right.
differently,
Mhm.
and for different reasons.
Yeah.
The older may get a little bit more attention. The younger one may be seeking the attention because he is the younger one, and maybe he's um, kind of picked on a little bit
Mhm.
because he's the younger one. There's a lot of
Yeah.
um, things that go into, or a lot of factors that go
Mhm.
into why the child experiences different.
Yeah.
So when you and I are dating, we're in our 20s.
Mhm.
I'm not giving you the attention that you're used to or that you want. We have two kids. at any point are you thinking you want to get out?
Yes.
Okay, what's going through your head?
Yeah. Well, I cried a lot.
Yeah.
I I cried a lot. Because I knew there were lies. You know they're lies, but you don't have the you don't you have some evidence,
Hmm.
but you don't have proof. It's like you're nothing makes sense, but you just don't have the actual proof of it all to be like, this is it, I'm done. So obviously that was before the Lord. So I just want to be clear with that. So yeah, I wanted out, but I loved you, and I wasn't trying to like seek attention from anybody else. But I will say, every time you and I got into an argument, and I've told you before, every time you and I would get into an argument, my thing was always like, if I went to the store or something, I wanted somebody to acknowledge me. I wanted somebody to just, look at me or tell me I was pretty, which is so crazy that I see that now, that that's what my to protect myself or to feel good about myself, that whenever we just got in arguments, that anxious attachment style just needed that from
Yeah,
somebody.
because you weren't getting the attention that you wanted from me
Mm-hmm.
and you deserved. You weren't getting the compliments that you would usually get and deserved.
Yeah.
You weren't being shown much affection, just on occasion, or
Yeah.
whenever when I had a good moment.
Yeah.
Um, So, yeah, you can see where you would want to get that. And sometimes that's when the first thing happens, when a coworker, a
Yeah.
friend,
Right.
someone from the past you run into and it's, "Hey,
Right.
how are you doing?
Yeah.
You look great." And that little compliment
Right.
triggers something in you. You feel something
Mm-hmm.
and then you act out on it.
Yeah. Well, and obviously we've talked about it, but I was younger, so I would get compliments at work, but I just never allowed it to affect me. Um, and then eventually it started. It started to where I was liking the attention that I was getting, and it was just becoming a thing where it was more and more,
Mhm.
and I was they were coming to me to compliment me. They were making efforts to come to me. Um, and so it started off, one started off, I don't know if you would say emotionally or whatever, but, and I remember telling you that eventually it was going to be somebody, because it was working its way up
Mhm.
to, at first, the first person, it was like, okay, I'm not going to cross the line. Like, it's just emotional. And then the next one, it's like, okay, then the next one, and it gets easier and easier. And then that line is no longer there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we hit a little bump in the road. And then from there, we just try to work things out. We continue. And then we get to, I mean, things pretty much stay the same. Financially, we're a little bit more comfortable. By that time, I had around 27, you're 24. I start working at the refineries, making, decent money, stayed out there for about 6, 7 years. And then I talked about it. That can be a dangerous place to work
Yeah.
because there's, the guys wanting to drink and all that stuff. Um, you found out that I was being unfaithful. What do you feel? What goes through your mind? What did you want to do? Talk us through that.
Well, I remember that um, I remember there was a phone involved, and I
Mm-hmm.
found it, and I remember the whole process that I went through to like lock the door, to go in the garage, and like all these things, and I called the number, um, and so I did all these things, talked to the person, and um, I remember telling you to leave the house that day. um, you know, I didn't want anything to do with you. But then at the same time, I look at my kids, and it's like my kids were at that moment, I guess you can say, all I thought about was, I didn't want my kids to have this broken family. I didn't want my kids to have, somebody else the way I
Mm-hmm.
did, other people in their lives the way I did. Now I know that has to happen for some people. I just didn't like it for me. And so I remember telling you to leave. You left. And then I think the next day you came home, and it almost was kind of like you came home, and then again, this is where I step into trying to be enough. I remember going into your world, and I remember drinking every day with you. We went out, this again before the Lord, and I was trying to be everything to you. I was trying to be cute. I was trying to, we have kids, and I'm like finding our, getting my mom or somebody to babysit them so that I could go out with you and drink with you every night. And then I remember coming to a point, I think it was a whole month, and I remember saying, I can't do this. Like, it wasn't me.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't me. I mean, we used to do that before. We would do that every once in a while. But this person who I was trying to be for you was not me. I'm a mom. Like, I was a mom, and I love my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, that's when I believe I said, we need to go to counseling.
Yeah.
And we need to do something because I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And that was 2008.
Yeah. And of course, I didn't want to go to counseling.
Yeah.
That's not something. I just thought that's ridiculous.
You would tell me I could go to counseling, and I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah. It's not something that, at that point, I'm thinking, why? Because it would require me to open up and talk to a stranger.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Because I wasn't at that place. I just, I'm not going to tell someone my business. And for what?
Yeah.
We can solve it together on our own.
That was your thought process at that time.
That was my thought process at the time. And so I leaned on what I grew up in, which was church. Even though I wasn't a Christian, I just wore the label, but I was at least involved in the church where I knew that's where we needed to turn.
Yeah.
I never really had a relationship with the Lord. When I would go to youth conferences or youth camp, that was the closest I would get to the Lord. But outside of that, at church, it was just about fun and games, because that's what they did. It's unfortunate, but that's what we kind of fell into that a little bit, just entertaining the kids instead of giving them good word.
Yeah.
And so they were just focusing on entertaining the kids. And so I didn't have but at least the seed was planted, right?
Yeah.
The Lord had everything orchestrated. We already see that now. You want to say something?
Well, I was going to say, and at that point, because I had so much hate. I had hate for everybody in your family. I was just mad. I had hate. I had hate for your friends. I just had hate in me, and I was done. I was so done. So when you said we'll go to counseling, I think at that point I was like, well, what do I have to lose? I don't even know what in me made me say okay, because I was so ready to be done. I felt like I was going to be at peace to be done at that time.
Yeah.
But
and again, we talked about the counseling. I said, no, let's go to church.
Yeah.
We wound up going to church, and that's when everything starts to happen.
Yeah.
Right. And so in everything, how was the marriage? They've heard my point of view. How were you seeing the marriage once we first started going to church?
Well, when we first started going, I feel like I was all in, because I wanted this relationship with God that I had heard about. I never had a relationship before. And the marriage was pretty good, but even before we got married, every time you reached out to your friends, I always knew something bad was going to happen. And it did before we got married. Even though we went to church, it was before we got married, right before we got married, and something happened. And I still was like, I'm going to go through this marriage. Like, I'm going to go through this marriage, because I remember them saying, God's not going to honor this relationship that we had, and we weren't married. But also to that, I never wanted to get married. That's a huge thing, is I didn't want to get married because of how I saw marriage growing up. So
explain that. What do you mean?
That it didn't last. It didn't last. And not being married was always, even though we were 10 years in, it always kind of gave me that out. Like, I was able to, every time we got into arguments, there was times I packed your stuff at the door, or I would say, get out. I could always say, get out, or I'm leaving, or it was just that easy every time we fought before that. And so to get married, it wasn't going to be that easy to just say, get out.
Right.
And I think that's what scared me.
And not only that, you said the way you saw marriage. Explain that.
That it wasn't. It basically it was about.
Was it how you viewed marriage or how you saw it around you?
It's how I saw it around me. I don't even know how I viewed marriage. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how I viewed marriage. I think I thought marriage was like a husband and wife were just happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because in the marriage that I saw, it was basically you make me happy. You make me happy, the wife. And that's it. That's it. Like I don't need you. If you're not going to make me happy, I don't need you. And that's kind of how I acted. That's how I treated
Mm-hmm.
you sometimes, a lot of times. That's where all the conditions came in. And I used to think if when I would hear husband and wives still married, like I thought that was so cool that your mom and dad were still married. And I always, I think, thought that that's because they were happy,
Mm-hmm.
that they were just happy and they got along well and they just, that's what a marriage, I think that's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
And I don't really, I never saw that growing
Yeah.
up.
So we get married. You're all in. What's the first thing you see in change or a slip up or what is there something? Is there a trigger?
Um, I don't remember a first slip up. I just, I was so used to you being good for 2 weeks and then go like it was like you're so loving me for 2 weeks and then you pull back. So when you were loving me for longer than 2 weeks, I was like, oh wow, this is nice.
Mm-hmm.
But I was so programmed already that way with you
Mm-hmm.
that it's like, okay, I'm just waiting for something to happen. Even though I'm like serving the Lord now, I'm just waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes what's so weird is it's almost like I was uncomfortable with it being good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what they say sometimes about people who cause drama or need
Mm-hmm.
drama in their life. And I didn't cause drama, but it was uncomfortable for things to be good. It's like this isn't. There's
You're not
some.
used to it.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not used to it, and there's something's up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for the first couple of years, like yeah, you were in seminary. Um, you were more uh, involved and then I started seeing the shift in you. I could always see, I mean, I'm the wife, right? And so I live with you. So I could always see the shift in you because the shift always was attacking me or
Mm-hmm.
like fighting with me or not treating me um, well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then I would always kind of counter that with a fight, with an argument, with putting you down or not thinking I was doing it. Um, I think I was a little bit nicer in it, but
So would you say things changed from how we would handle situations, whether it was an argument or whatever, once we got married from the time before we were married?
did we handle it?
Were things different?
A little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but not a whole lot. Yeah, a little bit, but not a whole lot. I think our well, one, we were married, right? So I couldn't just kick you out all the time. Now I couldn't just say get out, leave. Um, yeah, but it was we still fought a lot. We still disagreed, or not disagreed. We fought a lot.
Argued.
Argued. There you
Argued.
go. Argued. Yeah, we argued
Yeah.
a lot. I was trying to get you to see my way. You were trying to get me to see your way. I was trying to defend myself. I felt all the time that I was justified
Mm-hmm.
in that you were just horrible. Like you did everything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived by that.
Yeah, and this is where I'm going to pull in a little bit of mine because I think this is important to understand that while you feel justified in
Mm-hmm.
trying to state your case, I'm trying to get you to see the wrong that you
Mm-hmm.
do. And so it's a constant, we're just
Yeah.
going in circles
Right.
because I'm trying to prove my point, you're trying to prove your point, and we're getting nowhere.
Right.
And our kids suffered from it.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so this is where our kids have developed some trauma because that's what they saw a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
They saw a lot of disagreements, a lot of arguments. 1 minute we love each other, you know, casual love, maybe, just kind of, um, yeah, I love you.
Yeah.
Not really the affectionate, I
I think
guess.
there was some of that. There was a lot of that. It
Right,
was, but it,
but then it shift back
yeah,
to
right,
the arguing.
right.
So it was a constant back and forth,
Mhm.
back and forth, back and
Mhm.
forth.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you're over there trying to prove your point, which is probably from stemming from your attachment
Mhm.
style, um, guarding yourself.
Mhm.
So you knew. Sorry, let me take that back. You didn't know, but because of your attachment style, it fit perfect with my triggers.
Mhm.
And my attachment style fit perfect in pushing your trigger buttons.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm like, pay attention to me, pay attention to us, hug us. Why are you always going? Why do you always? Well, I guess at the you did kind of uh, detach from your friends for a lot of years, where you
Mm-hmm.
didn't interact with them for a lot of years. But there were still things that were happening where I'm like, oh, you would always distract yourself
Mm-hmm.
with something else, and so I would be, I would complain about that, I would fight about that, and
Yeah.
um, pay attention to us, pay attention to me, give me time. And you're distracted somewhere else. So here I am, the anxious, like, pay attention to me, give me time. And you're like, I need space. I need my own,
Mm-hmm.
you know, leave me alone. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, you would, and typical of how they say the anxious, how the avoidant sees the anxious is that you saw me as clingy and needy and it was too much for you.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was a constant. That
Yeah.
was a constant with us.
Yeah. And it wasn't so much you, it was just um, my need to get away from that scenario or
Hmm.
that stress.
Yeah.
And so now um, we try to, when I get home, to unwind. The good thing is, um, well, convenient thing is you work later on Monday,
Yeah.
Tuesdays, and
Yeah.
Wednesdays. So sometimes that gives me
Uh-huh.
some time to unwind, as we
Yeah.
say, me time.
Yeah.
And so by the time you get home, I've
Right.
released some stress in, most of the time I'm just, I'll get on my phone and scroll through YouTube
Right.
or yeah, things like that. But yeah, some of the other things that I would do before is I was big into gaming,
Hmm.
and in this time I haven't been so much. I've actually that's not part of my me time. It hasn't been in a while, but yeah, it was always occupying my time with something,
Yeah.
and whether it was a project around the home, I would do that to consume my thoughts to get it off of, again, all the responsibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was triggering you
Hmm.
because you weren't getting the attention. So, what can you say to help the viewers? What can you say you've learned or that you've seen from your childhood because not having a male
Hmm.
father or having a father figure in the home, not until you were in your teenage years, and not having a great relationship with your mom, but you've since been repairing that.
Yeah.
What what can you say that you've seen that you brought into the marriage or relationship that you could give as far as advice to the anxious women or even the anxious husband men?
Um, I think what I brought in was, you're not going to break me. Um, it was the I don't need you attitude. Is that what
what
you mean?
what advice would you say? What's the one thing that you see that it had you wish you knew when we first started dating? Is there something that you could see now that, man, I wish I did this different?
Um, I guess maybe not. I was looking at you to fill every need that I had. Like, you were supposed to fix me. You were supposed to fill every, yeah, every need that, compliment me, and a husband should compliment his
Right.
wife, right?
Yeah.
But it was in this, in the attachment style that I have, it's a constant. But it's from you that I want it. And sometimes, it's nice when other people do it, but it's like everything needed to come from you. And that's something that I've recognized, that now the Lord has allowed me. I know who I am in the Lord. I don't need to try to prove that I'm enough to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's who I am in the Lord, and I'm being confident in who I am in the Lord. I don't need that.
Right.
I don't need it anymore. I mean, I love when you
You like
compliment
it?
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not something that I have to have.
So on the flip side, you could also say as a warning, because if you're not getting it from your spouse
Hmm.
and you get it from somewhere outside of your marriage, it it can feel good,
Yeah.
and there's a potential to fall for that, right? So
Yeah.
you would say on the other side, be careful,
Yeah.
shut it down right away.
Absolutely. And we talked about it too,
Mm-hmm.
that when my stand first happened, I saw what the enemy tried to do. There was a gentleman that was being a naturally nice Christian gentleman, and the enemy started having, like, I started having thoughts, like, just thoughts of this person's really nice. He's really nice to me, but he was just nice to everybody. But had I not already been so, like, I guess, grounded in the relationship that I had with the Lord, I could see how I could have fallen for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm so grateful that I had the relationship that I had with the Lord, because this is, a married person. I'm a married person. And it wasn't even about me.
Yeah.
This person was just naturally nice, but it was nicer than my husband was being at the time. And so that's where the enemies, it's just amazing how the enemy just so quickly can come in and start putting these thoughts in your mind. But, so grateful for the relationship that I had with the Lord that it absolutely, it was literally just a thought or two, and then it just
Yeah,
went away.
well, you can link that back to your attachment style.
Hmm.
So what you weren't getting from a father figure,
Yeah.
you weren't getting much of from your mother, you started looking outside the home for
Yeah.
the validation, the
Hmm.
affirmation, the compliments.
Yeah.
And so you brought that into your adult life, although that changed quite a bit
Hmm.
before you even knew the Lord, but it was still something that you deeply desired.
Hmm.
From me, at the time, your boyfriend, fiance, then husband, you weren't getting,
Yeah.
but something so small or something like this that you were used to, even though you changed, your brain is still can still receive a compliment, and that can set off like a domino effect. You could fall for it. And you could say that sometimes it doesn't really matter. I mean, the person was married.
Hmm.
The person's married. Um, and you look back and you're saying like, why? How?
Hmm.
And but that's how your flesh can act out.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
just it can be a compliment from
Right.
somebody, and that's what you're looking at. You're looking
Yeah.
at the compliment more than you're looking at the person.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then when your mind, like, when you're like, okay, that doesn't even, like, compare to my husband. How could, but you can see, and God was showing me, like,
Mm-hmm.
I could see how it happened. I
Mm-hmm.
could see how it happened with you. And I'm grateful that I was able to see that.
Yeah.
Now, you don't want to have to go through that, but
Right.
obviously we do, and we did. And, but God allowed me to see how easy that happens.
Yeah.
And I absolutely saw my role in, in, in our marriage,
Yeah.
you know?
And it wasn't something that you did intentionally. It was something you didn't know. Had we known about this, it would have saved us a lot of heartache.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe I would have been more willing to get into church sooner. Maybe I would have seen a counselor. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very interesting finding out about the attachment style,
Yeah.
where you can pull it out in scripture, and how the Lord really wants to heal us.
He really does want to heal us, but how the enemy really uses it to destroy us,
Mm-hmm.
really uses it. And we didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought, I'm justified. I'm justified in my actions to him. God, I never even, I mean, I guess because I felt I didn't cuss at you anymore, or I
Mm-hmm.
didn't, I wasn't as bad as I used to be before the Lord.
Yeah.
That when we, gave our lives to the Lord in 2008, that I felt that I was, I'm a good wife.
Mm-hmm.
I was a good wife. I wasn't a godly wife.
Yeah.
I did not. respect you. And people might say, well, he doesn't deserve respect. Well, scripture says that you deserve respect regardless. And regardless, the Lord has shown me no matter what, my relationship with the Lord is what matters.
Right.
How am I going to honor the Lord with my life, with my actions? And he absolutely is making me whole. He absolutely is making me a secure attachment style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's truly the Bible gives us that example of how a secure relationship can bring a lot of healing.
Yeah.
Can help you to have that relationship with the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
and through that you start developing better relationships with your family,
Mm-hmm.
with friends,
Right.
in your marriage,
Right.
with your children, things like that. So yeah, the Bible has the anecdote for all of these attachment styles.
Yeah. Well, and what I want to say too, and I know we've said it before, but with the attachment style, because we go back to, talk about the relationship with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said it that when I'm in prayer for you and for our marriage, as soon as I'm done and I always stop to hear the Lord speak to me, and the Lord says, you need to work on your relationship with your mom. He's telling me that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, has he told my mom? I don't know, but he told me, you need to work on your relationship with your mom. Stop looking at who she used to be and start looking at who she is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those were not my words. That never was my word. All these years I've lived this way with just keeping, kind of being surface level with communication and stuff like that. But how amazing that the Lord, even in going before him with my marriage, he's wanting to heal me over here.
Right. And that's what truly is amazing, because we have had some conversation with standards, and you can understand
Mm-hmm.
why it's easy to lose heart,
Yeah.
to wonder, to ask if God is really speaking, if God is really listening. And through that, through your time with surrendering, standing, maybe let's say I didn't come back. The Lord was going to work on you regardless.
Regardless.
The Lord was going to work through you with your mom,
Yeah.
no matter what.
Right.
Then your mom was going to start work. I'm sorry, the Lord was going to work through you with your kids, with your brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And so during your stand, if I didn't come back, you were still going to heal your relationship with your mom,
Mm-hmm.
your relationship with the kids, your relationship with your siblings, aunts, uncles.
Mm-hmm.
Through you, you were still going to be that generational curse breaker,
Mm-hmm.
because you could still affect those around you, those you love, your family.
Right.
Um, but thank the Lord that He allowed me to get to the end of myself to come back. And now I can start working on my kids, my siblings, my parents,
Yeah.
aunts, uncles. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's really something that for standers you need to hear, that during your stand, that's where the Lord was telling you, take your eyes off of me and put it on
Right.
Him. When your focus is on the Lord, it doesn't become about you anymore. It's and it's not to ease the heartache or to make light of it, but now the Lord is going to start directing you to start healing other relationship wounds with
Mm-hmm.
your parents, or
Yeah.
siblings,
Right.
children. Your children are going to be the ones that are affected by it, so they need to see you as the example. So that's something that at least you can find, if you want to say silver lining or encouragement,
Yeah.
that the Lord is still going to work through you, even in this time. And sometimes maybe you were at some point focusing on me too much, and the
Yeah.
Lord couldn't use you effectively
Right.
and work through you.
Right. Well, I do want to say that when he started directing me, like there was other things I've told you that he directed me to do for ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that's when I say, like I heard before, the delayed obedience is
Yeah.
disobedience, because I would wait and the Lord would say, I need you to move forward without him.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't move forward without him, go do you, live your life. It was, I need you to do what I'm asking you to do, because I was so used to doing ministry with you, not by myself. I felt like, no, Lord, like I needed to do it with him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he directed me to do, some ministry work that you've seen that I've
Right.
done. But because he told me, I need you to do this without him. But God is looking at your obedience. He was looking at my obedience. And am I going to listen to him regardless of where you're at, what you're doing, who you're with? It was about me with him. So when the Lord kept telling me, take your eyes off of him and look at me, it didn't mean that you're no longer my husband or stop praying for you. It meant do what I'm asking you to do. He always said, do what I'm asking you to do. I'm taking care of him. I'm dealing with him. And what?
Well, I was going to say it's more about taking your mind off of me, because through your obedience, the Lord was still using you to work through me,
Yeah.
because you were preparing. One of the things you were doing, you were preparing these little baggies with um, um,
Like snacks.
snacks
Mm-hmm.
and a Bible and some hygiene products for homeless people,
Mm-hmm.
and you were giving them to me to hand out. And so you were no longer focusing on me, but the Lord was focusing on me through you,
Yeah.
because you said, "Okay, Lord, I'm going to take my eyes off of him. You do what you've got to do, and I'm going to put my eyes on you." And so then the Lord said, "Okay, you've got your eyes on me. I'm going to use you to get to him." So because the work didn't stop in me, your focus shifted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the Lord's like, okay, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
So once it's amazing that when you see that the Lord never stopped,
Right.
just because you thought like, okay, I'm going to take my focus off of him. The Lord's like, okay, now my focus is on him.
Mm-hmm.
And so that gave me a sense of, wow, I used to do this.
Mm-hmm.
This is, it brought back memories of going out,
Yeah.
ministering to the homeless,
Mm-hmm.
feeding the homeless, doing the things that we did in ministry when we were
Mm-hmm.
in ministry. So, yeah, it's.
Well, and it got the kids too,
Mhm,
because the Lord directed me to give you a couple of bags and give the kids a couple of bags just to have in their vehicles.
mhm,
But it's because it was the hardest time of their life that they still had to show the love of Christ, and
mhm,
that's how God directed me to
yeah,
do it. Not to keep, because you want to throw scripture down everybody's throat. You want to say, "Please turn to God, please love God." But but that's not how He was directing me to do it.
right. Yeah, it's important to. It's amazing what will happen when you just show someone love,
Hmm.
because there's so many broken people out there who've
Yeah.
never experienced love from a father, a mother,
Yeah.
and so when we start showing the love of Christ, that can have an impact on those around us. When you take your eyes off of your situation, your spouse, as hard as it is, the Lord knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And this isn't just about the prodigal, and it's not just about you. It's about the people that we can affect with our love, with our actions. And sometimes just a simple display of care in handing something like that. Now, the Lord may be directing you to do something
Yeah.
else. This is what the Lord was directing you to do. So it's not going to look the same for everybody.
Right.
It's going
Right.
to look different.
Hmm.
The Lord may tell you to write something else down, or He may tell you, instead of giving your spouse flowers, give them chocolate, or,
Yeah.
something. Just
Hmm.
may not be anything at all.
Hmm.
So it's going to look different.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share? You missed out or left out?
No, I don't.
You're
I don't
good?
think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was good. Getting a little bit of an idea of your childhood. I know you didn't want to go too deep into it,
Yeah.
and a little bit of my childhood and how they clashed and
Hmm.
how they really how we bumped heads because of that.
Yeah.
So I think it's really helpful. So if you all have any questions, Monica might be willing to get a little bit deeper into it. You can always email. We have a link to our calendar on our channel. Thank you for watching, and until next time, bye bye.